shoes of the starting quarterback to share, I heard.
No, I absolutely do not. That's way above my pay grade, but they're doing well. They're practicing hard.
Tell me about that first scrimmage and what you were looking for. And then Fran was saying yesterday he wants to see both guys take a big step this week. What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're looking for leadership. You're looking for command of the offense. You're looking for guys that are able to go out there and kind of run the show, be efficient. And, they're both, young guys that are getting experience in this offense. So I think what we were looking for last week is for just a huge step in command, control of the offense, understanding, leadership. And, this whole week, next Saturday especially, I guess, but this whole week is kind of a huge step in kind of setting the table for the rest of our season. So what they do this week in practice and what they do Saturday in the scrimmage will be critical.
How is the relationship that Steve has with your brother, having played with him? How did that help you streamline what you want Steve to do here?
I guess I've known him since he's, about 14 years old, and we recruited him the first time around at Rutgers and got to know him. And, as you said, he played at Bergen Catholic for my brother. So, over the years, getting to know him and, following him, I knew a lot about him. And, he's a smart kid. He's a great competitor and loves football. And he's a really talented leader. It's something that he's always had a gift for. So, those are all things that we were looking for. And, I think it was a good fit.
Talking about, what you want them to improve upon, this week heading into Saturday's scrimmage, what advice do you kind of give both of them in coaching to get them to that level that you guys want them to be at?
It's funny because they have different things that they have to get better at, and that's kind of stuff that we keep in-house. But really, ultimately, you want them to lead in their style. They got to be comfortable being themselves in front of everybody else. And then they also have to be able to execute Coach Nixon's vision of what we're trying to do. So, there's a big step, I guess, that we're looking for in that, like to make sure that we're all on the same page. And honestly, like when I looked at the stats from last year's first scrimmage and this one, they were super similar, which is, I guess, I don't know if that means anything, but, you do think that there should be a great amount of growth this week from last week. So that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for, their confidence to continue to develop, their teammates' confidence in them to continue to develop, and, they're just total understanding of what we're trying to do on every play.
What have you seen from the progression of some of the younger guys in your room so far this fall season?
Actually, they've done a great job. Going down the line, really, we have 4 freshmen. So Jakari being a redshirt freshman, he's here one semester before those guys, but he's made great jumps as a passer, as a runner, understanding of the offense, all those things. Luke Carney, really intelligent. He's really gifted in his sense of being able to process information quickly. He does it like a veteran. Rich Bielen's confidence has really taken a great jump as he's gotten to understand everything, through the spring and the summer. And then Joe Filardi is really doing an awesome job. He's one of the best throwers in the room, and he's got, just a great moxie to him. So all 4 of those guys have done a great job of just taking a step forward, learning, growing. And, there's a lot in this offense. So when you're a young guy, there's a lot of things you have to learn, and they've done a great job at it.
What is it, in your estimation, that kind of makes Ricky and Steve different from each other, but then what also makes them similar to each other?
Well, the thing that makes them similar is definitely character. They're both really high character guys. They have great work ethic. They love football, and so they're really easy to work with. And because of that, they do a good job working together. They have physical skills that are different. They have experiences that are different. So I think those things, are different. Like playing in different high school football, different environments. They both played in obviously major college programs. They've been really well coached. So it's another, I guess, similarity. But some of the physical skills are different, and that's kind of you got to figure out when each guy goes in the game. Okay, what are they good at, and are we putting them in a position to do what they do best? And that's our job as coaches, and it's also our job to push them and see, if they could some of the things that the other guy's really good at. Can they do that? So finding a comfort zone for us as coaches is important too.
What was it about Steve that made you guys kind of want to go and get him when he entered the portal, other than, I know you had the connection to him, you've known him since he was young, but what was it that made you guys want him?
Well, I think one of the things that Fran has mentioned a couple of times was, seeing him go in that game last year in the playoff, just his poise, his ability to go out there and compete, to not be overwhelmed by that environment. I mean, that's about as big a game as college football gets, and he goes in there and kind of changed the whole momentum of the game. So obviously we knew him and a lot about him before that, and to see him go out and do that the year before, he got an opportunity to start the bowl game, and he played really well. So, and honestly, the reports from there were really positive. Everyone that talked to anyone from Notre Dame was basically super positive about him as a player and a leader.
How have you had to, you mentioned the different skill sets there, but how much of the offense do you have in at this point in camp as opposed to maybe last year?
A lot. It's really just a matter of ultimately when you get to game week, picking the things that you think fit the best and what do you do. So, we give them a lot of information in the summer, and then, week by week, we kind of pull it off the menu for what we think is the best, to beat each particular team. So they get a lot of information in camp, and they're probably 85-90% through that. And then after that, it's kind of cleaning it up and getting ready for, the first game and kind of figuring out what we do really well.
When you look at cadence and control and just leadership in the pocket, what can you say from what you're seeing from Collins and Angeli, some of those things that go beyond their throwing ability?
Yeah, I think they're both doing a really good job of commanding the offense, and those are the things that are really going to be separators. Like who takes the biggest step as a leader, who has the best command, who executes when they're in with the team. Do they move the football right? Do positive things happen? So it's not just statistics that separate. Because we call the plays, we know how the play should work against what. It's also, the feel that you get from the team, the vibe of who goes in there and gives us the best chance to win a game.
What are some of the most important things, I guess, you look for in terms of your quarterbacks building chemistry with some of the receivers on the outside?
Well, I think understanding of the offense is really important, So, we talk a lot about processing information quickly, but when it comes to the receivers, a lot of it just has to do with the more work we get to do collectively between the coaches and the quarterbacks and the receivers of what we expect on each play against each coverage and how we're going to react to it. And we've got a lot of really talented young players on this team. So the faster that we can get on the same page is really going to dictate what this season, what happens for us on offense this season. So that's a big push in what we're doing is trying to create chemistry across the board. So obviously the quarterback decision matters in that, but both of these guys are, really good throwers, and they really work hard, so they enjoy doing that work with the receivers, which is good.
I don't know how much you can measure this in a scrimmage, but, there's obviously so much that you can change at the line. There's not much you can change, but with those guys, have you, really built up a trust enough to trust them to check out of certain calls and get the team into the right spot?
Absolutely. They're in charge of a lot of different things, run game, pass game, protections, all that stuff. So, they have a lot on their plate, and, that's a big part of it, who handles it, who can manage it, and we try to create a lot of chaos in practice. Coach Fran runs a really challenging camp because, you look at our schedule's really challenging. So, they need to be ready when we hit the field August 30th, and our defense has done a great job of, challenging us every day. So, those guys are asked to do a lot, and it's a big part of their job.
Lastly for Coach.
How does it factor into your decision, Coach, that you have an offensive line that's trying to fill a lot of holes this year, 4 new starters being put in there? Does that work into the quarterback dynamic at all? Or
Maybe, how the chemistry between the quarterback and those guys goes, if one of them is maybe a little better leader than the other or something like that. But otherwise, not really. It may temper what we choose to do. Obviously this O-line is different than last year's O-line, so we need to pick the run schemes, the pass protections, things like that are going to give us the best chance to win. But I don't think it factors a whole lot into the quarterback.
How do you balance letting Steve and Ricky compete while also wanting to make sure that your game plan is crystal clear for week 1 pertaining to whichever quarterback is going to be starting?
Well, I think once we make that decision, we'll turn our attention to Tennessee. But I think the majority of our attention right now is on Syracuse and being the best team we could be and doing what's best for our team. And, Coach Fran's really big on talking about being where your feet are and focusing on today. And, our best chance of accomplishing the goals that we have are, to have an incredible Tuesday and tomorrow have an incredible Wednesday. So we feel like even in game week when we start getting ready for Tennessee, it's the same mentality. Can we have a great Monday, great Tuesday, great Wednesday? And, that all leads up to having a great Saturday.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.